Hey, Laura.
Hello.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Carnivorous Grandma Speaks. Today, we are preparing for the zombie apocalypse with Laura at
Sweet.
Healthy Carnivore. And Laura is, she's an amazing person that I have met recently. And of course, you guys, if you watch our show on Monday nights, Meeting Mondays with the Fierce Felines, you already know Laura. And so Laura is into prepping. And so I kind of wanted to get her, I had her on a couple of months ago and we did an interview together, but I wanted to bring her back because she has some really great information for us about being prepared in case of emergency. So, Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Laura, and my channel is Healthy Carnivore. My background is nursing over 21 years. Then, prior to that, I discovered keto basically before it was keto in 1991 due to extreme high triglycerides and morbid
Mhm.
obesity. So I did that for 26 years clean, I always say. And then the last 2 years, I started adding in the keto treats and making everything look like, what you were used to having, and started developing joint issues, pain, inflammation, cystic acne, like I had never had in my entire life, never had as a teenager. Um, and then happened to watch Joe Rogan and Dr. Baker talk about carnivore, and I was like, I love meat. I can eat meat. I don't even like vegetables at all. So I was like, I'm in. So I'm that all or none and I just jumped in.
That is awesome. I was just talking to my husband, I think it was this morning, either this morning or last night, and we were talking about being carnivore. And he was like, it's just kind of interesting that you never liked vegetables anyway. And I'm like, you're right. That is awesome. Yeah, there are very
Mhm.
few vegetables that I actually like.
Yeah.
And I mean, but there are a few, but I'm
Yeah.
happy to not have to eat vegetables anymore because I was not thrilled with vegetables to begin with. So I'm
Yeah.
right in line with
I
you.
can Yeah, I can eat like, and I haven't done it, but I mean, like if I was in a starvation situation, I would eat like asparagus. Um, I could probably do an avocado, more of a fat type thing. I would eat, I'm trying to think, mulberries, like we have mulberries around on trees. If I was in trouble, I mean, that's something I would do. But like to sit down and have supper and be like, oh, I want to have something on the side. I just make ribeye fat. That's my go-to side dish. So,
Side dish,
and it's
yeah.
delicious.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
used to always say, like, I hate salad. I
Mhm.
never ever enjoyed salad unless it was like covered in all of the other stuff, like meat and
Sure.
eggs and cheese and,
Yes.
craisins and
Yep.
nuts, all of the things to make a salad taste good. I just never really liked lettuce. I'm like, what is the point of lettuce? I don't get it. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
I
and
will
it's
say it.
bitter.
It's bitter, yeah. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just seemed like a waste of space to me. Like I just couldn't even understand why people would say they like lettuce. Cause like some people are like, oh yes, I love lettuce. I'm like,
Mm.
you've been trained to love lettuce.
Well, and
But it
what I
doesn't
tell
taste
people, because
good.
I had a vegan, is that one that Dr. Baker had on that was like, thinks we should like jump off the planet and just give up on the planet. I mean, he was way out there.
Wow.
Nothing, I mean, if he wants to be vegan, that's fine, but he was actually clinically not there anyway. And he kind of come after me for a comment that I made on there, which I thought was pretty not, and I was not mean or, distasteful. And he was like, well, I love lettuce. And I said, I highly doubt you're going and grabbing a head of lettuce and eating it without having all these other things on it to make it taste decent. And then
Yep.
you're just taking in seed oils and everything else. So I'm like, if that's what you like, you go for it. I'm not going to recommend that. If somebody wants to have some vegetables with their carnivore, that's okay too.
Yeah.
I think there are people who can integrate some of that. Um, don't have to be a Puritan or be dogmatic on that stuff. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, we know that vegetables can be a part of the proper human diet spectrum, according to Dr. Berry. So I don't begrudge anybody who wants to eat vegetables, to be honest. If you want to eat
yeah,
vegetables, as long as it's like a single whole food type of a thing,
sure.
and
Yeah.
not processed food, I'm like, go for it. Eat a
Yes.
vegetable. But
Yep.
I definitely don't prefer to eat vegetables. And I don't feel my best when I have them. So I've had them a couple of times, maybe 3 times or 4 times over the course of the year that I've been carnivore, and they didn't make me feel good. So
Yeah.
no need to
Yeah.
eat them. You mentioned mulberries. So
Mhm.
so I know that a lot of the fruit that we get today is highly genetically modified. I've not heard much about mulberries lately. Is that something it
Yeah.
seems like that's the untouched one.
I would say it's definitely untouched. Peach trees that we have in our yard are untouched. They come from extremely old seed. They are untouched. I'm trying to think what else. But yeah, mulberries are something that the birds spread around, which is kind of gross the way it all goes about. But that's kind of how, it kind of runs along a lot of train tracks or places that have a lot of trees lining like fence rows and stuff. So we have those. And of course, that's just seasonal. But
Mhm.
mulberries are actually pretty interesting. They have a bacteria on the outside of them that is actually good for the stomach. It helps kind of set the stomach microbiome if you're off. So, like last year, my husband was having some stomach issues and kind of gastric emptying really quickly. And I don't think he'd had an antibiotic, but I don't remember what kind of set that off. And so when we would take our dog for a walk, we go down the tracks because in our little town, the train comes through once a day, usually noon. Sometimes it'll come through a second time at 5, but it is literally 10 miles per hour. So we could get away from it. It's slow. So we will take that path. And he ate quite a few of those as we went along, because they were ripe. And I was like, those are good for the stomach. And like next day he goes, I'm completely better. And I was like, there you go.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I literally have not seen mulberries. I'm like trying to think what they look like. It's been so long that I can't even remember what they
Yeah.
look like. As a
They're
matter of fact,
similar to like a black raspberry.
okay. So I was just thinking about in terms of like if the apocalypse happened and you had to forage for food, it would be very valuable to know what foods look like that you can eat. Because I know we get some berries in our yard.
Mhm.
Those berries I
Me
think
too.
are poisonous. So I don't think I would want to be eating them, even though like the birds can eat them. So that's
Right.
probably something really important to know in
Yeah. And
case.
I don't think I think I have it loaned out right now. I have a book that is on foraging that I got off of Amazon. And I think it's called like Nature's Bounty or Forager's Pride or something to that degree. I think if you just type that into Amazon, it goes over the different plants that you can use medicinally, like mullein is something that we have growing around here quite often around fields and gravel roads, stuff like that. But it has lots of stuff in there. The berries that you could eat, things that you can use, leaves to make poultices for different things, or nettle tea, things like that. People don't
Hmm.
even realize when you look out in your backyard, you probably have half of the stuff already. It's out there, and it can be
Wow,
used. Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
I
the
think I was just
craziest
thinking.
one.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, the craziest one that I read in that book when I first got it was those little whippoorwills that come out of maple trees that everybody's like, oh my gosh, I got to go sweep those up again. You can dry the seed pod on that. And if you have like a mortar and pestle, if you didn't have power, you could actually grind that into a flour to
To
use for
eat?
baking.
What?
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
That's crazy. No, I never would have thought of
Yep.
eating that.
Yep.
That's interesting. So I took the name of the book down. I'll look it up on Amazon and make sure that I put a link
Yeah.
in the video. So in the show notes,
Yeah.
I'll get that book and make sure that I put it in there. I was thinking about mushrooms, like because my yard gets a ton of mushrooms. All of them, I
Right.
believe, are poisonous.
Ugh. Yeah.
So, like I have dog. Well, I have right now I have one dog, but had my
Yeah.
daughter's dog for a while. And I was really nervous because walking like in the fall or sometimes in the spring too, when it's moist, when the ground is kind of moist, all these
Mhm.
mushrooms will pop up. And
Yeah.
I was afraid that they would get it on their feet and then they would ingest it and get sick. So that mushroom, it's those mushrooms are a problem for me. But I'm like, there are
Mhm.
mushrooms that you can eat, but how do you figure out? Do you know how to figure out what mushrooms are safe?
Yeah. Well, I I I don't generally eat mushrooms. I know there's one that you can see sometimes growing on wood that's laying down. It's called chicken. I think it's chicken of the forest or hen of the forest, and it actually tastes like chicken. Actually, one of
Hmm.
the speech therapy people I worked with before, she actually brought it to work and had made it. And I was like, I'll taste that. Let's just see. And it did. It tasted just like chicken. It was amazing.
Wow.
So if you have internet, if you're able to get internet, you can always take a picture and do an image search on like DuckDuckGo, or if you want to use Google, I do not, but I know some people do. You can always take a picture of something and put that out there. Yes, chicken of the woods. Thank you, Jenny. Yep. And it'll go through and tell you whether it's something that you can eat or you can't. And so what I did, because I was doing that with my grandson one summer, and I also had like plant, I think it's called Plant Finder app on my phone, so it
Hmm.
could come up to a plant and do that. And then what I did is I just went home and I did the old fashioned way, and I got out my little recipe cards and I started writing that stuff out. So I do have a lot of stuff like saved onto Pinterest, but everything I have on Pinterest, I have handwritten out also in case
Hmm.
something,
Hmm.
because as everybody saw last week, um, when like Facebook goes down, people lose their minds because they're so used to having that at their fingertips. So
That's true. So yeah, I think that if something really bad happened where we weren't able to get food, I mean, if you think about what happened with the pandemic, it was really hard to get food and supplies.
yeah,
So um, but I would be afraid that people would eat things that are not edible. Like
yes,
when I think about the mushrooms, like the
sure,
mushrooms that are in my yard look perfectly normal. They look similar to what you buy
yeah,
in the store.
yeah,
When before they, you know, get really big and crazy looking. Ugh.
yeah,
Gives me the
yeah.
willies, actually.
Yeah, and I don't know, those may be okay. I would look them up to see what they are.
Mhm.
Um, there's several ways looking at the underside
Yeah.
of the head of the mushroom. Looking at those things underneath is an important way of telling if it's, something you can have or not. And most of the time, animals kind of have that built-in sense that if a dog goes up and eats something, it's
Mhm.
probably okay for the most part. I mean, some dogs are going to eat anything they think they're a goat, but most of the time, and if a horse eats something, you're golden. So remember,
Okay.
if you have horses and they go up to a stream and they drink the water out of the stream, you can also drink that water out of the stream because
Okay.
they will not drink. Yep, they will not drink water that is bad ever.
Interesting. I did not
Mm,
know that.
yeah.
So the dogs do not eat the mushrooms. I will say that. They
Oh,
don't
okay.
bother with those mushrooms at all. I've seen them pick the mushroom up and then shake it like it's a live living thing, which it is, and
Yeah,
then spit it out.
it
They will
is.
not eat them. They
Yeah.
won't like ingest them.
Okay.
So, but they will try to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And then
her-
in your area, do you guys get the morel mushrooms that
we do.
everybody likes to? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've went mushroom hunting, which I don't really call it hunting because they can't run from you, but um, but I don't really care for them. It wasn't anything I mean, I'd go do it and cook them, but I'm not a big fan. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of them. Um, but I know a lot of people do like them. So, and we do
Yeah.
have them in this area quite heavily. So, I mean, people back here will sell them for crazy amounts of money.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do. And like, yeah, the Morels, they come out around Mother's Day. And basically, that's the only time of year that you can get them. They're super, super expensive. But the funny thing was, my daughter, who lives in an apartment complex, her husband was outside and found some morels a couple of years ago. And he
Uh,
cooked them up. This is before I was on
Yep.
Carnivore. Cooked them up and let me try them. And I was like, they taste like dirt to me.
They're
They did
yeah, they
not
taste like
taste
foot.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. I never did. My husband likes them. And he'll go mushroom hunting. I mean, being carnivore, I am petrified of getting bit by that tick that causes
Mm,
you to not be able to eat
meat,
meat.
yeah.
And I'm like, and he comes in, I'm like, strip down. We are checking you over. Don't get
Yeah.
any funny ideas. We are looking for ticks.
Ticks only.
That is it. I'm just like, because I'm like, man, if I get bit by that, I'm in trouble because I just can't stomach a lot of the other stuff. I'm
Right.
sure like we do a huge garden, and it's all natural. It's all heirloom seeds mostly. I think there's a few
Mm,
things he puts in that aren't. Um, and so any of the stuff we have is still going to be single ingredient. It's not going to have chemicals on it. We are plenty far away from fields that they've been putting chemicals on. We actually have an aquifer that runs under the town, so
yes.
it's a good water. Yeah, it's a clean water supply.
So there's a couple of comments in here I'm going to go ahead and pop up for a
Okay.
minute while we're
Oh
here.
yes.
So Darth
Yep.
Carnivore, hi Charlie. Welcome. Love watching reality TV, wilderness survival shows like Naked and Afraid and Alone. Folks that win these tend to be successful meat eating hunters. Absolutely.
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
another thing a lot of people don't do anymore. Is the hunting. It's probably 2 generations back that a lot of people hunted, like, during, the Great Depression. They might have trapped, they might have fished, they might have hunted,
yeah.
if they lived out on the farms. In town, they were kind of stuck to whatever, government, subsidies they could bring into town for them. But, I was fortunate to grow up with my grandmother right next door who went through the depression, was the last of 13 born on the farm, and they were all 13 girls. So by the time number 12 and 11 came, I think great grandpa was like, I got to have help on the farm. So he utilized those two to do that. So that's where I got my hunting, fishing, gardening, canning, coal packing, and prepping
Mm.
was from her because that's what she lived.
Hunting, fishing. What was that? Canning?
Yep, canning, coal packing, prepping.
You know what
She
that
did it
is. You're going
all.
to have to tell us what that is. Coal packing.
The Yeah, coal packing is that. So
Oh,
you can see the fat and the meat. That's where you take. Now I do raw cold packing. So I put raw cuts of either deer, beef, chicken, fish, whatever meat you want. And then I put ribeye fat in there. And then for like a pint, I usually do half a teaspoon of Redmonds Real Salt. You could use Celtic salt. For a quart, I would do a whole teaspoon of salt. And then you put it in a pressure canner. And I don't know if you've seen one of those where they've usually got yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah, I do all kinds. This one's deer, that one was beef, but that
Okay,
is
so
good for 10
cold
years.
packing. Oh, I thought you said coal.
Mhm.
Cold
No,
packing.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
cold packing. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh,
Mhm.
so what does that taste like?
It tastes wonderful. So it will like you could cut up a brisket into little bite-sized chunks and put in there and do that, and it comes out like prime rib.
Oh,
It's just
wow.
yeah, my husband loves it. I don't know that he had had much of that prior, but he wanted to have like noodles and like a gravy with, some kind of like roast beef type meat put in there. And I was like, I got cold packed deer meat. And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, just try it. So I made that and he was like, that was really, really, really good. And I was like, yeah. And I was
Mm,
like, you could eat that. So if the crap hits the fan, you can take that right off of your shelf, pop the lid open. You'll know if it's not good. First of all, it's not going to be sealed if it's not good. So people are always like, you could get botulism. I'm like, anybody that couldn't smell that, even if you've had COVID and can't smell, you're still, it's a smell you can't get away from. And you
okay.
can eat it with a fork right out of the thing. But I've had it up to like 9.5, 10 years that I've eaten cold pack. As long as that seal is good, you're good.
Okay. So when you're pressure canning that, can you do
Mhm,
that
mhm.
do you have to have a canner, a pressure canner, or could you do it in a
I
regular pressure cooker?
I have had people that live out, like homesteaders that say they do it what they call a water bath. So like if you're making like salsa, um,
Mhm.
that is a high acid food. So you
Right.
put it in a canner and you put water over the top and you can it for, your time. With pressure canning, I've always done it in a pressure cooker. You put water about 3/4 of the way up the cup or up the thing, and then you set the pressure. I do it to 10 pounds, and I do it for an hour and 15 minutes for pints and an hour and a half for quarts.
Oh, wow,
But
so it's a long
I
time. It's
yes,
not just
it
like
is.
a yeah, so an
No.
hour and a half.
Yeah. Yep. And I usually do pints for the hour and 15. And people are afraid of pressure canners because they hear of, oh, somebody had a lid pop off and it went through the
Yeah.
roof. Well, 90% of the time I do mine outside on an old turkey fryer base, and then have the LP hooked up to it or whatever.
Oh, wow, okay.
Um, I've
Yep.
n- I've never had one do that ever. As
Mhm.
long as you're smart and you follow the guidance of you leave the lid alone, like you put it in, you do it, you set it, and then when it's done, you turn the flame off and you walk away and leave it for an hour and a half. Don't
Yep.
even mess with it.
Right.
And then you take the lid off but I really, as long as I use quality lids and rings like from the Ball company, I don't have failures. During the pandemic, um, it was hard to find some of those Ball lids, and I had used up a lot of my supply I had, so I bought some off of Amazon, and they did come from China, and
Mhm.
9 out of 10 of those would fail. I was so mad.
Wow.
So then I'd have to see if I had any more of those Ball lids and have to do that process all over. So,
Oh
yeah, the
my
people that fill
gosh.
our LP tanks were like, "What are you doing with all that LP?" And I'm like, "Do I look like a meth person?" I'm not. Yeah, I went
Right.
through a lot.
Okay, we've got a few comments. Let me read some. So Rhonda's here. Hey, Rhonda.
Yes.
So
Hi,
glad that you
Rhonda.
could be here. Carnivore news you can use, lady.
That's right.
She says, wow, thank you for sharing your knowledge, Laura. Very interesting. And I absolutely, totally agree with her that this is
You're welcome.
awesome information and more to come. So, Jenny Murphy, Tartarian Prepper. We're working on building
Oh, nice.
up our property homestead. And when we're able to move out there, I'm going to plant a garden for the deer. Easy pickings.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. I'm thinking about
Absolutely.
planting a little bit of stuff in my yard for the rabbits since I won't
Mhm.
be eating any of that stuff. But we got a lot of bunnies out here, and if they can make it with the hawks and we have a bald eagle out here this week, a couple
Oh,
of weeks
yes.
ago, and so if they can make it, I don't mind them eating a little garden full
Sure.
of food. So
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And really for deer, they love clover. So they love like your clover. Turnips is something that people could grow if that's what they want to do.
yeah,
They really like the turnips too.
yeah.
And then I always put out like some salt and some different stuff like on a, tree stump that's been cut down or whatever, because they need those minerals too. And it's not, the groundwater is not great for anybody to drink. So I like for them to
So
get
yeah, my
that stuff
dad
too.
lives out in the country and he's always put out salt licks for the deer. Every year
Yep.
he puts, I mean, he makes sure that they have salt licks out there because, yeah, he says the same thing. Okay,
Yes.
so congratulations, Jenny, on your homestead. I was telling my husband that I
Yes.
would love to have a homestead here in my community where I live. We can't even have chickens. It's like it's an HOE, HOA.
Mm.
It's an
Yeah.
HOA,
HOA.
and I'm like, HOE, it's a hoe. I did not mean that it was a hoe. It's an HOA, and we can't have, besides having little dogs and stuff, we can't have any animals here. So that is kind of a bummer. I would love to have my own chickens. So, Nurse N95, hi, Nurse N95. Is your husband
Yeah.
low carb or keto? How do y'all manage family members who are not on board?
Oh, very easily. And no, he is not. I would say he definitely eats a meat heavy way of eating. He actually follows the seasons.
Mm,
So during the winter, it's more of the stuff that we have canned or cold packed, things like that. During the summer, it's tons of stuff out of the garden. Fish, we like to fish. He loves to fish. I'll go fishing if they're biting, but if they're not, I get bored and I'm like, I got to find something to do. um, and he'll even go ice fishing in the winter if the ice gets good enough and safe enough. So it did not get good enough long enough this year to do that. So, but as for handling it, I basically came into this already being keto, very low carb, when we first met. And so I don't mind cooking any of that kind of stuff. I could care less because I've been off of it so long that I have no want for any of it. I mean, I can make
mm,
you chocolate chip cookies. I don't care. I'm not going to eat it because I see it as skull and crossbones. I really do. And I had to do
mm,
that to myself years ago. And
yeah.
now it's just kind of stuck. I know what it is. I know what it does to the body. So I don't have problems with that. So I generally, like last night at 9 o'clock, I was like, I'm going to put half a brisket in the oven, get it ready and cook it overnight and then do stuff with it today, putting it up into different types of glass containers for the next couple days and stuff like that. And then if he wants like a baked potato, he may throw a baked potato. Or like last night, we had blanched some broccoli from our garden last year. And so he put that in a bowl with some butter and warmed that up and had that as a side. So, and as for like holidays, we just went through the holidays. Everybody knows that if I'm bringing a dish, I did beef ribs, and I'm huge thing of beef ribs. I just bring my own. I always have. I'll show you my favorite little thing to keep in my purse is my little Redmond Real Salt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I always have those. I always usually have butter or ghee with me, but I didn't really need it with the beef ribs because there was plenty of fat on them. But they're just used to it. It's what they've known. And it's all my kids have ever known because I did this. I started keto when my daughter was just maybe, she was born July 4th, and I started the day before Thanksgiving in 91. So she was a
Wow.
baby. So this
Yeah.
is all they've known is mom doesn't eat too many vegetables. She eats a lot of meat, lots of fat. And so then when I made that transition away from most of the vegetables or really all of them, um, they were like, oh, okay. Like no
Yeah.
big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, my family is still like, "Oh, she's doing that cute little meat thing." No,
It's
but I
been a
think it's
year.
been a year. They're seeing that I'm thriving on carnivore.
Yeah.
And, people are curious about it. So if they ask me,
Hmm.
I'm not pushing it on anybody.
Yeah.
except for my husband, which I'm really trying to push on him, but he's not there yet. He's like your husband. He's
Yeah.
mostly meat based
Yeah.
because that's what I make for him, but I still make him some
Right.
vegetables. But it's, I don't
Sure.
give him any processed food necessarily.
Yep.
So, but, so they're curious about it. And if they ask, I'll talk their ear off about it. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I'm bringing the meat. During the holidays, I did like all of the meats.
Yeah.
And I made sure that I had a variety of different kinds of meats because it was going to be my first holidays going through it without eating
Oh,
any
yeah.
of the other stuff, right? Just staying
Right.
carnivore throughout it. So I made sure that I had a variety of different kinds of meats that I could eat. And I made sure that I stayed full. So,
Oh,
but everybody around me is
yeah.
eating everything they want. And I'm like,
Yeah.
one of these days, I hope that they will see the light and,
Yeah.
the truth can make them
Well,
free.
and I think there are some people that I have come in contact with that can go and they can go do a regular Thanksgiving and eat a piece of pie and do that kind of stuff and transition right back into carnivore, and they don't seem to have a lot of negative side effects, I guess I would
Right.
say.
Yeah.
I don't have that, and I
Me neither.
just and I'm not somebody that can moderate. So if I even touch anything, and I don't know if it'd be that way now because it's been so long, but back before I gave this all the junk up, is if there was a bag of M&Ms, like the great big bags that have the zipper on it, I would buy
Yeah.
my husband like the peanut M&Ms, and he could have that bag in his sock drawer, and he'd walk by and pop it open and take two, close it. He may not touch it for 2 days. I'd have been
Yeah.
the whole
Yep.
thing.
Me. That's
Right.
me too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
No.
so I'm one of those that if I dabble into that, I'm afraid I would just go headlong. Even if it's not here, I'll get in the car and go get it if I have to. So that's why
Yep.
I choose to kind of be so strict with myself. And I don't even feel that it's strict anymore because I felt like crap every time I did eat that stuff. So
Right.
I don't have any of those days anymore. So, and it may be the way my stomach microbiome is set up, and we're all definitely different there. But yeah, my husband has no, I mean, he's 62. I'll be 53 next month. He does not have any high blood pressure. He has no diabetes. He's physically fit. He does 100 and some push-ups every single day on his knuckles. um,
Wow.
yeah, so I mean, I don't know, he's healthy. And it works for him. And it could be genetically. I mean, he's from Ireland, so he's one of those people that can eat a big potato and he's not got a sugar rush. And I ate a pretty good size of broccoli right when I was getting off of keto onto carnivore. And I had the keto mojo, and I could also check my blood sugar. And I went up 300 points with that. Yeah,
What?
one
With
serving of
broccoli?
broccoli with
Wow.
butter on it. Yes. And I went up 300 points and I was like, screw it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not worth it. I agree
Yeah.
with you. Like, I am the same, exactly how you're talking about resonates so much with me because I have done it over and over and over again, and I'm like, I'm not willing to do that again.
Yeah.
I know that I don't have to. So back when the
Wow.
carb cravings were controlling me, I couldn't
Yeah.
control myself, right? But
Hmm.
now the cravings are no longer controlling me, and I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to that obsessive thinking about food and all of that was like totally crazy. And I thought it was a normal state of mind to be obsessing
Hmm.
over food all the time. And it's really just not. So,
It's not.
yeah, it's not
And
worth it
this
for me
is
to go
just
back.
easier to me.
Yeah.
Like I can, like I deer hunt, we have fish. My husband shoots rabbits. Sorry for anybody that thinks rabbit. I mean, they're cute,
They're cute.
but we
I
do
would
have a
eat one
couple
though.
in the freezer. Yeah.
I would eat
And
it.
I won't, yeah. And I mean, if I'm starving, I'm definitely going to eat it. I don't eat that right now. That squirrel, any of that kind of stuff. quail, pheasant, any of those other ones. I really don't. I would if it came down to it,
Yeah.
but I just am not satiated when I eat those other things that aren't the ruminant animals for me. I just don't. I thought I would miss like, chicken wings and chicken thighs and stuff like that, and I don't.
Mm,
They don't fill me up. Um,
yeah.
it's kind of like eating Chinese food. An hour later, you're like, where did it go? So it
Yeah.
just seems so much easier to me. I don't have to plan out all these side dishes to make. I don't have to be planning in my head, like making 3 meals today. And if the crap hits the fan, none of us are going to be eating 3 meals a day with snacks. I promise.
Right. That's true.
Yeah,
That's very, very
and
true.
I'm very well prepared with. I don't even know how many jars of canned meat, butter. Um, I'll show you something that we do too. That I don't eat these, and that is those are beans.
Oh,
So
okay.
we, yeah.
Mhm.
So we actually we plant black, red, pinto. Sometimes we do cowboy. I don't know. There's all different ones that we've done, calico beans. And then we just let them hang in the garden and dry in the
Mhm.
pummy. That's the outer part. And then I'll go out and pick them all off and put them in a bag. And then like during the winter, like watching football or something, I have to be doing two things because I have to have my hands busy. So I'll be and pull them out, make sure they're dry, set them on like a cookie sheet, or I don't even, what are those sheets called? Like you would make a Texas sheet cake in. I
Oh,
have a
yeah,
lot of
sheet pan.
those.
Sheet
Sure,
pan.
but I
Yeah.
don't, yeah, but I don't use them for that. So I will lay those beans in there if any of them are not completely dried out and
Mhm.
let them just sit and dry. And then I put them in a glass container with a lid like that. And then I put one of those silica oxygen absorber pouches
Mhm.
in them. And then all you have to do is reconstitute them, which you can do overnight in a pan of water with the lid on it on your stove, or you can put it in the Instapot and do it in like 30 minutes to reconstitute them if you're somebody that does eat beans. I do not, but
I would
there
eat
again,
beans. Yeah, when the pandemic hit, I
yeah.
was on keto. I was trying to be on keto. Like, such
Hmm.
a struggle. But I went out
Hmm.
and bought a 20-pound bag of rice. I
Yes, I got.
definitely don't eat rice. I bought the rice, and at the end of the end, at the end, I ended up giving the bag of rice away because I'm like, I'm never gonna eat 20 pounds of rice.
Yeah,
But just in case, I was like, if I'm
yeah.
gonna be hungry, I'll eat rice if I have to.
Well, and I mean, I think if it comes down to starvation, any of us are going to eat the stuff, that's available if we
Mhm,
have to. But what I did, and this is coming from what my grandmother had taught me, she was very good about being prepped as for going through it once. Yes, beef ribs were delicious, Arlene. um, but the main things that I tell people is you want to be as prepared as you can to have 3 months worth of food, water, salt. Um, and if you can't can your own food, that's fine. You can buy canned tuna, salmon, beef, chicken. There's all those. Um, you can can tallow.
mhm,
You can can lard, you can can butter, and have those things. I mean, it doesn't sound appetizing to take a bite out of a big thing of tallow, but if you're starving, I can guarantee you that's a real good energy source, and I will do it.
mhm.
And I have tons of them. So,
Yeah.
other than making my products, I have a ton that I've already canned up. But you could have sardines, you could have cod liver, in oil. You could have, and I'll probably never eat peanut butter because it made me so inflamed. But a good like Smucker's natural that's just the peanuts, oil, and salt. People could have that. That's very shelf stable, stays good for a long time.
Mhm.
That's the kinds of things that I would have. And then I bought like you, I have, and I did it before the pandemic. So like I had people coming and like, you got toilet paper, you got paper towels, you got it. And I was like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I already had them. It's not like I went out as soon as the pandemic started hitting and I hoarded stuff. I already had the stuff bought up.
Yeah.
Because I would not be one of those people that goes and buys the last 5 things on a shelf. That drives me insane.
Yeah.
You just want to
So let
go
me
up
ask
and
this
slap
question.
them.
Before the pandemic, I mean, are you doing anything like couponing or something like that that's helping you to stock up, or do you just stock up when you catch it on sale? How are you stocking up on that kind of stuff?
So, well, of course, it was before inflation went completely nuts. Because I've been doing this for eons, but anytime there was a sale, I would watch sale ads for like Aldi's, Hy-Vee. We have a Walmart that I despise to go in, but once in a while I'll go. I would just watch for those things. We have a Fairway, which is where I get my ribeye fat. And so anytime they have huge sales, I will go buy, whatever it is. Like if it's meat, and then I come home and I break it down into small packages, freeze it or cold pack it, whatever I'm going to do with it, right there and have it ready. Um, and I just did staple things, not staple stuff that I'm going to eat, but staple things. So I have gallons of honey. Honey is a very good thing to use for wounds, different medicinal things that you can make. So I have local honey,
Mhm.
alcohol. And when I say alcohol, I mean vodka because you can make tinctures with vodka. You want it to be at least 80 proof. Um, the salt I can't even pick up this one bag of salt. It is so heavy. Um, I have that, but I bought coffee and I bought coffee beans and it's from Melaleuca, so it's the organic. But I bought a ton of coffee beans. I bought cane sugar, not beet sugar. And if you go buy sugar and it just says sugar on the front of the bag, it is beet sugar, which is
Mhm.
worse than cane. I'm not saying any of it's great, but I would not put beet sugar in my body if I didn't have to. It has to say cane sugar. So I bought that,
Well,
rice,
can I just ask?
beans,
I'm just gonna pause
lentils.
you there because I want to just
Mhm,
ask about the sugar. So, in your thinking about some kind of disaster happening,
mhm,
what would
mhm.
you use the sugar for?
I would trade it. I would use it as a barter item.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
same with the coffee, same with, I've got rice, I have salts, like I have a bunch of the pink Himalayan salt. I have sugar-free sweetener options like Chalk Zero, things like that,
Mhm.
that I would give to, like, my diabetic patients. I wouldn't trade them, I'd just give it to them. I've got your herbs, like, I've got organic thyme, oregano, stuff like that, that I make my, essential oils, your oregano oil and stuff like that. I've got stuff to make kefir, and it's water kefir because I can't do like the milk, but that's good for gut biome to
Mhm.
put the good bacteria. Of course, I got the cocoa butter. I've got shea butters, different things like that for skin products. But
Wow.
I didn't, and I do have a ton. So like when somebody like my friend came in and looked, at my room yesterday, and she was like, well, we know where to go when the crap hits the fan because you
We're
have,
all
yeah.
coming to your
I was
house.
like, yeah, yeah. And, but I've been doing it for so long. I have extra like olive oil, avocado oils. I have, the Lodge cast iron pans. I have a brand new set I've never touched. They're already seasoned, from the factory. I have those ready to go. I mean, I just have things. I just, did that, another buddy heater that you can put 2 of those little propanes up to it, and you could heat, and you can actually use it inside the house if you had to. It's safe, it doesn't let off. Somehow they're like it converts, but I also have, like, an extender that I could do, and I think it does, like, I forget how many. I can't remember if it was 450 square feet or 600. So, you could put that like in a living room and do a living room and a bedroom and maybe even a dining room or something at one time. But I just bought stuff a little at a time. And anytime something was on sale, or if I had an extra $10, I would buy up canned tuna.
Okay.
or canned sardines, and then even though it has the date on it, I take a black Sharpie and write it on the side. And then as I use those things, I bring the old up front and put the new stuff in the back so that you are going through some of that. Now, with the sugars and flour and stuff like that that I bought, I did buy, and they were fairly cheap on Amazon. They're made by Rubbermaid, and they're a container. I'll see if I can get this one down. I think it's the one I have the rice in. Okay, so basically it's got a pop lid but it kind of seals it. And then I have an oxygen preserver in there. And this, unless it gets moisture or air into it, it'll be fine. You have to be careful with some of the brown rices doing that because they can get rancid from the oil that's in them.
Mm.
So you're best to do white rice or the jasmine if you're going to save stuff like that. Another thing you can do, and I think you had trouble with eating these, and maybe yours were chomps. These are Paleo Valley, but I bought up quite a few of the Paleo Valley meat sticks. I've got all the different ones because they're as close to being perfectly clean as you can have, other than if you make your own, which I did make pemmican, which is an Indian survival food. And I have that. So the other thing that I recommend for everybody to have, and I bought enough and handed them out to my family members, are these straws. They're called the water straw. And you can do
Oh, we're having a hard time
several,
seeing it. It's a little blurry.
a little shiny. Let me see if I can move
Yes.
that light a little.
It's
So,
like
yeah.
your background thing. Oh, there it
Oh,
goes. Okay, we can see
yeah.
it. But I'll make sure that we put it in the show notes. Water straws.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Water straws. Let me see if I can click out of that. And I'm just trying to see if it says, because it does quite a few. And this you could do out of a stream. They do make water purifying tablets also that you can put in water. And also any water, even like say you have tap water, like I have tap water here that I use. I have a filter pitcher that I use to get out fluoride and all of the chlorine and stuff. Another thing you can do that helps is taking that water and let's say like for a coffee maker, I have these, well, it's actually my old bullet blender thing that I used to use back in the day when we were trying to choke down, the green stuff in our shakes. But anyway, I have one of those and I will put water in that and then let it sit on the counter overnight. So a lot of your chlorine and stuff actually comes out of it.
So there's a question. There's a few comments I want to cover, but here is a question from Arlene, and she's asking, what is a water straw?
Okay, so a water straw, I wish I already had one opened. And let me see if I can take the blur off of my thing here for a minute. Somehow, let me go here, get rid of that. We'll go here for a second, and then I'll blur that again. So I don't know if you can see what it looks like there.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the end that you would drink out of right there. But the other end is where it would be in the water and you can drink it and it filters. It's got filters built in there that pull out all the microbes, bacteria, things like that.
I've never heard of that. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a few comments. Let's try to go through some of these.
Okay. Sure.
Sorry, you guys, if I'm not getting to everybody's comments. So Arlene says, we have a friend that hunts deer, elk, oryx.
And oryx. Uh-huh.
What is an oryx? I've never even heard of this. Is it an animal?
I've heard. Yeah. We don't have that in our area where I live.
Oh, she lives in New Mexico. Okay.
Oh,
yeah. I've never heard of an oryx. Every chance he gets here in New Mexico, my dad and uncles hunted and always had a cellar with my mom's canned food. I once helped
Yes.
dress a lamb for a big party. Nice.
Yes.
Very awesome. Nurse N95 says, everyone wants mama to cook, and I don't have your discipline quite yet, but I'm working on it. I'm a hospice nurse and see the end result of a
Oh,
lot of diseases that could possibly be prevented. Probably most of them.
absolutely.
So sad.
Yes.
This
It is.
world is
Boy,
it's heartbreaking.
and God bless you for being a hospice nurse. Those are one
Yes.
of my favorite nurses to be around. Back when I worked in the nursing home setting, when I first became a nurse, I knew when it was time for the patient, it's like have the talk with the family, like we need to get hospice in here. Not waiting until the last day or two where they get no value out of the hospice entities, the things that they're able to provide.
Right.
But I don't have that ability. It kills me, and I'm just glad there are people out there. It's just like OB nurses. They're that's good. That's not that's just not something I'm good at.
Yeah, I watch a lady, there's so much fear associated with death. There's a lady that I've been watching for a while, and she is a hospice nurse, and she
Mhm.
talks about end of life.
Right.
And she has taken so much of that fear out of it for me
Yeah.
personally, with people passing. I've always had this, like, I don't know, it's scary that somebody died, but
Yeah.
watching the hospice nurse talk about end of life and explain like what the body is doing and how it's natural. The body is, I mean, it's prepared to be born and it's prepared to die. So, those are things
Absolutely.
that every body does. And so really, thanks for being here, Nurse N95. We really appreciate you,
Absolutely.
the work that you do. Okay, so Jenny Murphy says, I have 100 pounds of rice stocked up in my pepper pantry. No, pepper
Yeah.
pantry shipping container. If stored
Yeah.
properly, it can last 20 to 30 years. Wow.
Yep. Yeah,
I saw
absolutely.
my rice in a bag and I knew it wasn't gonna last,
Yeah.
wasn't gonna last
Well,
20 years.
and
I didn't
I
I
don't
didn't really
I was
prepare it.
yeah, but you could. I mean, and so that's something you can get Mylar bags, and I did have a package. I don't know where I set them now. Um, and it comes in with all different sizes. It was also from Amazon, and it was just Mylar bags. I typed in Mylar bags, and it comes with the oxygen, packets in there of all
Mm,
different sizes. So you could do that stuff. And yes, it can last forever. Same with the coffee bean because I haven't ground it down yet.
yeah.
Keeping that airtight, stuff like that. If you've got a food saver, that you can do, that's a good idea to do some of that stuff too. Um, any of that. And then somebody was talking about these Paleo Valley sticks that they're too salty, which they may be. I don't know. I haven't eaten one of them because I don't have them in my prep room for me to snack on. I only have those if something goes sideways. I'll be okay having them. But yeah, they
Yeah,
may be salty. I don't know. I bought them just to have extra with like the pemmican that I had made.
very good. All right, so I found that down there. It's Oaktown Girl, and I've not tried the Paleo Valley meat sticks. I've actually tried to stay away from meat sticks since I had the issue with the chomps. I'm like, that was pretty clean, and I still had an issue with it. So I just did not, haven't tried any of the other ones. Arlene says, I did low carb good for 4 years and lost 70 pounds. Sounds familiar, Arlene. I started
Yep.
keto desserts and gained 17 pounds back in January 2023 and prayed to start carnivore in September. I didn't think I could do this. Started in August 31st, 2023. Congrats, Arlene.
Absolutely.
The funny thing
Yeah.
is, I feel like people think they can't do it and they tell themselves they can't do it before without even trying. And that's the
Right.
same thing in a lot of areas in life where, like, I could never, you hear people say, I could never eat only meat. They just
Yeah.
already shut it out
Yeah.
before even trying it or seeing what the benefits
Mhm.
could be. So
Right.
it's
And I
yeah.
think this keto thing, the thing is, I think like the first 20 years that I did keto, I did single ingredient foods. It was stuff I was growing. Um, it wasn't making like the cheesecake that looks just like the cheesecake you used to eat because I that just keeps those same
Mm,
ideals in your head and cravings when you, especially the sweet.
yeah.
So I think, like I said, the last 2 years that I did that, that's really what derailed me. And then, um, I would have inflammation after like eating broccoli. I would make like the broccoli soup. I would do different stuff like that keto. And I just was, I did like a week of all meat just because I wanted to eliminate, because I knew I was lactose intolerant. And I was like, fine. So I took everything out except for meat, and it was like pork belly, dark chicken, and steak. And then just added one thing back in at a week's time to see. And sure enough, I mean, of course the milks and stuff like that got me, but even the vegetables, I mean, my gut was
Yeah.
just tore up, and actually I couldn't even go to the bathroom. I mean, it literally did the opposite of what everybody says fiber should do. And I thought, this has been my whole life. Like as a kid, everybody's like, eat your vegetables. And I'm like, I can't because it makes me feel horrible. And now that I don't do that, I don't feel horrible. And it's been well over 4 years doing it. So I will never, ever, ever go back unless I'm starving to death. Oh,
Carnivore
it's
Hunters
Carnivore
are here.
Hunters.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. We have some questions.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and take a look at those. So Oaktown Girl wants to know what's a good resource to learn how to do canning for meat?
If you're gonna can meat, you'll want to look up cold packing. So it's like COLD packing. And there is a way of doing it with raw meat. There's also a way where, like with burger, you cook the burger ahead of time. I wouldn't cook it all the way through. I would do it very minimal and put it in there. But you can find that stuff online. I do have some videos on my channel where I did cold pack. I don't know if I did one canning tallow, but I did one on canning butter.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually do that one in the oven, but there's tons of places out there. Like I said, I don't use Google, but if you have whatever search engine you use, you will find this. I will tell you, when I was doing some researching on like the canning the butter, because my grandmother did it, so I had her recipe card to go from. But when I was trying to see if there's any different ways that they do it now, it was like, you're going to die, you're going to get sick, you can't eat this. And I was like, well, I just opened up a jar that's 9 years old, like, and
Wow.
I'm still living.
Well, it's just like they
So
say you're going to have a heart attack if you eat only meat. So
yeah,
they
yeah,
don't be telling the truth.
they don't. I have seen the inside of people's arteries, and it is not a big glob of cholesterol. It's a big glob of calcium and all the other minerals. Because as
Hmm.
your veins and arteries get damaged, they become more like osteocytes, which are like your bone sites, which
Mm.
then draw in calcium, and then calcium draws in the rest of the minerals because of the way it's charged, the type of ion.
Wow.
So it looks like chalk that is inside the arteries. And that's why when you have a coronary calcium scoring test for your arteries, it's not called a coronary calcium or cholesterol scoring test, it's a coronary calcium.
Okay.
So
All
I know
right.
we've been told that it's that, but that is not true. Oh, duck
Yep.
eggs.
So
Charge
they
or
had a
low
whole
carb, of
conversation
course.
in here about the duck eggs and how
Yeah.
good they are. I have not
Oh,
tried duck eggs yet. I
I have.
really want to try them because I've
You
heard they're
should.
really, really good.
They are.
So,
My daughter has ducks, chickens, geese. They have quail. Is that the only ones that they have right now? But duck eggs are very, very good, very rich, very good.
and they have
Yeah,
big yolks because
they
I
have
don't want to
huge
eat too much
yolks.
egg white. I want to eat
I
mostly
don't
egg yolk.
absolutely. And
So
growing tobacco, smart. That's a smart
very
barter item.
smart. Yeah.
Mhm.
The people going to be wanting that during the
Yes, they will.
apocalypse. Arlene never thought of bartering. And when you said bartering, I was like, ding, ding, ding. That makes a lot of sense. People are going
Mhm.
to want those things because, that's what they're used to having. So then they had a
Even
whole
just health
conversation about this.
supplies, like even just not food supplies. So if you think of having extra bottles of hydrogen peroxide, rubbing alcohol, not the mercurochrome, because damn, none of us ever want to do that again. um, you know, what is the name of that? Let me grab my bottle. I'm like, what the heck? Can't think of it.
Iodine.
Iodine. Yes. Iodine, Providine. So like I have the 10% Providine, and I have two giant bottles. So I mean they're great big bottles of that. And I have a whole kit that has all that stuff. But even like stop clot, which anybody that's military will know that there's like this, it looks like a powder that you can put inside a wound and it stops it from bleeding. I've got nitrate sticks, things
Mm.
like that. And these are things that you can buy right off of different sites. Most of it I did do through Amazon. So Jeff Bezos, I've given him money and I didn't want to, but it's okay. I'm prepared.
You're prepared.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Raw. Yep.
Raw honey can be
She's
stored
right.
indefinitely. Archaeologists have found jars of honey in the pyramids that was thousands of years old, but still good to eat. Wow.
Yes.
That's
So, and it'll
amazing.
actually crystallize in a jar. So like if you have a jar of honey, it may crystallize over the years of it sitting. And what you can do is take a double boiler and put it like in a bowl up above that and kind of let it just slowly. You
Uh-huh.
don't want to microwave it and you don't want to heat it too fast. Otherwise you lose all the good benefits. But yeah, I use it for wounds. Like I said, I use it to make different healing remedies.
Awesome.
Beef heart on sale. Mm.
I get it from my local farmer. So when I go to the farm, I'll get the beef heart. It's never on sale, but it's so good. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
I really like kidney. So like when I shot,
Mm.
like this deer, the deer, I mean the kidneys were so good. I was like, I would have never guessed in my life. I mean, I kept the liver too. I was
Mm.
planning on keeping the heart, but unfortunately that was the impact. So there was nothing to save there. Darn it.
Wow. So they're talking about the hospice. So I just want to pop this up. My mom was on hospice, but the nurse only came for a few minutes a day and not on weekends. I was the actual nurse, it seemed. So,
Yeah, and Rick, that is partly true. It is especially, I think it's changed a little bit too in the last so many years. Because when I first became a nurse, um, it's just like all of healthcare. So much of it is dictated by insurance companies, by the hospital corporations that you work for, and they don't get to do as much of that stuff. And a lot of it is training the family and the loved ones or other caregivers how to do the things that they would be doing if they were in there. It's no different than like I do home health. A patient may need dressing changes twice a day. Medicare, Medicaid, none of the insurances are ever going to pay for us to go in the home and do that. They used to, but now it's like we can come in and do it once, like 3 times a week at the most. And we have to have somebody teachable that can learn to do it the other times. And it's unfortunate, but it's amazing. I had a 12-year-old who was able to be taught how to do IV antibiotics for his father through his pick line. And I was like, I do not like this. I didn't care for, but he did wonderful. And actually, I think he'd be 25 now, and I know he is a nurse in St. Louis. So it maybe kind of taught him, yeah, and gave him the bug.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to find out information so that I can figure out what I can do, the basics. Couple more of these.
Yep,
Um,
motor oil. Yep.
okay.
We have, yeah, we do that too. The only thing is about motor oil and charger, I've watched you, Rick, before, is you understand cars and motors. I'm a car girl and a motor girl, so I understand that. Is that if an EMP, if the grid, if everything goes down, it isn't going to really matter if you got motor oil unless you've got a car that is before like 1968,
Mhm,
because
mhm,
it's not going to start. The ignition isn't going to work,
right.
unless you've found a way to bypass that. And I do know there is a way. And so you
So
might
Rick
have that way.
probably does have a car that's before before the
and
computerized
and
car.
he might, but and I do know there are ways around that, and there's shielding and stuff that you can
Mhm,
do. But I mean, I always think in the big scheme of things, because we haven't had a war over here. We've lived so comfortably for so long that we have forgotten and we've given up so much because we've gotten stupid of not listening to what our grandparents went through. But if you look
yeah.
at places that have had wars, everything's wiped out. You're not going to have gas stations. You're not going to have pharmacies. You're not going to have grocery stores. You're not going to have those things that you can just go down the street and get that. So, that's why I say it's good to have some food, water, salt, basic bandages, basic
Mhm.
cleaning, for wound care, stuff like that. And then things to barter, or if you know how to do stuff. Like I also crochet, which I know seems odd. I'm all over the map, but I have so many Afghans that I have made up. And I mean, I could trade that. I mean, if somebody wants to give me some beef, I'll trade, you know. So you need to have some kind of a skill, and everybody's got a skill. They maybe don't know what that skill is yet, but they have something.
That's true. That is true. All right. Got a couple of questions here.
Okay.
How long will pemmican stay good? So first of all, can you talk to us about what pemmican is and then tell us how
Sure.
long it's going to stay good?
Yes. So pemmican, the premise behind pemmican, um, like the recipe from like my dad was 3/4 Cherokee and grew up in Oklahoma on, I think it was called Spring Hills Reservation. So my great grandmother's recipe was deer, buffalo, and I want to say beaver, which I did not do that. So just I'll throw that out there. I just did deer. And but you can do it with any of the meats. You just want to make sure there's plenty of fat. But you basically take a meat and you kind of like you would be making jerky, and you just dehydrate the heck out of it until it is just as dry and as hard as, I mean, it's hard. It's horrible hard. You would never be able to chew it, and then you put it like through a food processor, or if you have a mortar pestle, you could break it down that way into a fine powder. And then you take like a tallow or a lard and you melt down the exact same weight of whatever amount of that meat powder you have is the same amount of the fat. And then you mix that together. And so what I did, you could put like, I would never do this, but this was in my great grandma's recipe was they had like sesame seeds, they had blueberries and cranberries, just the berries that were around. They would throw in there as well, dehydrate all of that stuff together and then grind it down, put the fat with it. Then you lay it flat like in your sheet pan or whatever, and you allow it to dry, put it in the oven at like, I think I did like 185 or 200 for so many hours. And then I cut those into bars and then I put them in with my food saver so they're airtight. And they've been like my first batch that's up there on my shelf, it's 7 years old. Um, and it's not growing anything. So I think it's just fine as long as it's airtight. It has a lot of salt added to it also. I
Mm,
did add a lot of the salt, but, um, it would be, and the thing is I made them in small bars. Some people make them in these great big bars, but you wouldn't eat like a whole one at one sitting anyway. So,
mhm,
like, say you're out and you're having to move about. I mean, because if it's warm out, they're gonna melt because that fat, of course, is gonna melt. So I just did smaller bars, but I think it's like 5,000 calories for one bar. I mean, it's a lot. So
mm.
it's really good survival food.
Mm. And how long does it last?
I have a pack up there that I made that's 7 years old that is not, it still looks exactly like it did the day I put it in there. And it's airtight. I do have it in a like I have a food saver that I
Hmm.
used for that to make those things. So that's how I have mine packaged. And the salt helps preserve it too.
Wow. Sounds like it would taste really good, actually.
Yes.
Sounds
Yeah,
like a carnivore bar.
it does.
Okay, cool. So Kel says, I love that I finally found a carnivore prepper. I'm the only one in my house that's a carnivore. My husband's still on SAD diet, and older daughter is a vegetarian. No,
I know. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Does she
Sorry to
eat
hear that.
vegetables out of your own garden?
Yes. And I wanted to
Yeah.
just kind of go back. Actually, I took a note here when you were talking about heirloom seeds. Can you
Mhm,
just
mhm.
explain a little bit about what does that mean and
So,
what are
yes.
heirloom seeds?
So heirloom seeds are seeds that can be replanted. So let's say you have tomato heirloom seeds and you plant them and you grow the plant. You're not going to have as many tomatoes on that plant because it hasn't been genetically modified, but they're going to be wonderful tomatoes and they're going to be full of seeds. Well, you can save those seeds, and there are ways to save seeds from year to year, whether they're wet seeds or dry seeds.
Mm,
And that's in another book on seed saving on Amazon. I do know it's like seed saving, but so you can use those from year to year. So I don't know if anybody out there's ever tried, like you get a pumpkin at a pumpkin patch that also has gourds in it and stuff like that. And you throw it out in the garden or in the backyard. Next year, you're like, what is that growing out there? It doesn't even look like a pumpkin because it was genetically modified, and you have no
mm,
idea which thing you're going to get.
mhm,
So I just use those type of seeds for the stuff that we grow. Um, and I save them. I don't, and I save them from year to year. I have some seeds. The I'm trying to think how many of the tomato plants last year. I think 6 of the tomato plants last year are still from seeds that I saved back from my grandmother, and she died in 1986.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I tried to do that actually last year. I tried to take some seeds and dry them. I just ended up throwing the whole bit in the trash because I was like, oh, it's giving me
Yeah.
the willies.
Yeah.
So, but when if you want to buy seeds that are heirloom seeds, you can
Mhm.
buy them. They'll be called
Yes, you
heirloom
can buy
seeds.
them.
Yeah.
Yep, they're just called heirlooms. Yeah, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the only thing I would ever, yeah, that's what I buy. Like, and
So
that's
yeah,
what my
like I said,
husband
I'm thinking
uses.
about planting some stuff, but I don't wanna plant the genetically modified stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want it. I don't want it. Because I might
Yeah.
wanna, my husband eats vegetables still, so he might wanna eat something out of the garden. I don't want him to eat that genetically modified stuff. Okay. Last Day of Normal is the carnivore channel where I've seen canning. And
Ah,
then there was another
last day
comment
of
about Last
normal.
Day of Normal. Have you heard of it?
I
It's a
haven't, but I'm gonna look them up.
Yeah, definitely. Have to check that out. Um, so we'll definitely have to check that out.
And I
Now,
also say with prepping, you want to be able to, if you're able to. Now, I know some people live in apartments, they live in big cities. There's always things that you can do and have little stuff tucked away in different corners and cabinets and just put up. But the other thing is, like, for a lot of us that live more country, like out in the boondocks there, you want to also be able to protect yourself and your stuff.
mhm. Okay, I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yep, I heard you. Yep, yep, yep. So, do you have any prepper videos on household things you can repurpose instead of throwing away?
Let me think. I don't have any videos on that because I really don't. I'm trying to think what I will tell you one thing that I do, and it sounds stupid, but I do because I don't have a lot of waste because of the way I eat. but like toilet paper rolls and paper towel rolls, I will save those and cut those into like little 2, 3 inch tubes. And then like I grow everything from a seed inside the house on the
Mm.
back porch first. So I'll
Mhm.
put dirt, in like, and actually, those tin pans that you can buy, foil pans with the clear lids. I'll take those lids and put good soil, in there. And then I'll take those little toilet paper rolls and put those down in there and then put 1 or 2 seeds in there. And then as they start to grow up, you can put that in the ground and that actually breaks down.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
just
that's
like
a
a
great
peat pot.
idea.
Yep. Yeah. So I do that, but I'm trying to think of what else. I don't use paper plates. I have them, but I use glass.
Yeah, I
I
wanted to
use
ask about that.
plates.
Why are you using glass? I'm in the midst of switching over. I still have some plastic, but why are you
Yeah.
using
I
glass?
I quit using plastic a long, long time ago. I mean, long years ago. In fact, I was just telling my husband that yesterday. Um, I said, "How many years has that been that I switched all of your stuff that he takes his food to work in to glass?" And he was like, "Oh God, 10, maybe?" I was like, "Yeah." And so it was just that when you reheat stuff, um, especially the plastics. I mean, anything I sell, like, my lotions and stuff are in a plastic, but they're BPA free, which is probably still not perfect, but it's better than some of the other plastics that are out there. But to reheat your food, I mean, that's going to go up into your food. And so I just quit doing it 10 years ago,
Yeah,
and it wasn't really for me because I don't reheat a lot of stuff normally. I just eat what I'm going to eat. But I just was like, I didn't want him eating forever chemicals and them being in his body forever. So
yeah,
we just kind of switched everything over. I mean, everything I have pretty much is glass. Everything I either cook in cast iron or I do have a couple that are like a ceramic stone. And then I'm trying to think what else. All of my like I did the brisket last night. That is like a probably a 9 by 13 glass Pyrex pan. I have
mhm,
all of those. I have a brownie size pan, like the 8 by 8, I think, and it's Pyrex. I have that Visionware that, like, if he's gonna do like a sweet potato with butter, sometimes he'll do that in the oven. Cut those up into little chunks if he's having like a ham steak or something. And we always use that vision where I just quit doing it because of all the chemicals in there. And before I was a nurse, I worked in factories. So I worked in a factory that we built semi trailers. So I got to see a lot of chemicals there. And then I went and worked at a food factory, and you would have thought I would have seen less chemicals there, but there was actually more.
wow,
And that's really kind of what scared the hell out of me and was like, our food is really tainted. I mean, I knew it to a degree, but when you physically see it firsthand, it's like, okay, that's pretty scary. And I always talk about the FDA and the USDA. I'm not a fan of any of the 3 or 4 letter agencies, but when you look at the way our Food and Drug Administration is set up, it is so crazy that those two entities are together, because the
mm,
Food Administration comes up with like your food pyramid and what's allowed to be in your food and what can be in school food and prison food and hospital food. And then you get the metabolic diseases from the food they approved and said was good for you to eat. And then the Drug Administration portion of the FDA comes in, tells you what medications you can take for the metabolic diseases you got from the food they approved. And I'm like, if that's not a racket, I don't know what is.
yeah. It's disturbing. It is really
It is
disturbing when
disturbing.
you think about the vicious cycle that we're in.
Yeah. Well, and you try not to go down a rabbit hole. I mean, I've been a conspiracy my whole life. My grandmother, like I said, her family came through Auschwitz, and she
Mm,
always said that it's not the government's job to take care of you. And
mhm,
any government that wants to take care of all of your needs has an ulterior motive. And if we haven't
mm,
seen that in the last 2 years, where these kids are so used to having handouts through the pandemic, pay you to not do this, pay you not to do, and now we can't get them to work
right.
because
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that's why they tell you not to feed the bears. It's not because they are afraid the bear's going to attack you. The bear's going to forget how to hunt for itself. And
True.
that's what we've done. Yeah.
Right. Sad case. All right, we got a few more of these.
Yes.
We got a bunch more comments. Okay,
Yeah.
tobacco can be used medicinally too.
Yep.
Examples such as poultice for bee stings, and the smoke can get bugs out of the ears.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, you can actually blow smoke and you don't have to inhale the smoke. I actually did that with my daughter when she was, I don't know, she was born July 4th. So she was maybe a month or two old and we were outside and a fly or something went into her ear and we
mm,
just took his dad smoked. And so I just puffed it into my mouth and then blew it in her ear and out they came. So yeah, and you can make poultices from many things. You can make onion poultice, mustard poultice, garlic poultices, potato. Like I'll never eat a potato, but I've made a potato poultice before to put on an
mhm.
abscess to help that starch bring that up, and it does work. So yeah,
So I know cabbage is really good for like
mhm,
gout.
yeah,
Wrapping the
yep,
joints in cabbage can help with gout. So
yeah,
tobacco can be used to kill insects and rodents. That's good
awesome.
to know. I did not know that.
I didn't know
And
that. I
then
did not.
tobacco smoke is used by
Yes.
beekeepers. Okay, very
Yep.
good. I did not know that it was. I knew it was
Yep.
smoke, but I didn't know what kind
Yep.
of smoke it was.
Yep.
Rick wants to just let us know that his cars are totally free of
Oh,
electronics.
smart.
1968 and through
Okay.
1970 Dodge Chargers.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
That
nice.
that doesn't surprise me. So yeah, he's
Nope,
still got your point system, which is smart because none of the cars now, I
yeah,
mean,
they're
you would
all
be SOL. He's going to be the only one we're going to have to hitch a ride with him.
right, right.
He's
He'll
got
be
a
driving
van.
around. Oh my gosh, he'll be driving around like Mad Max. My generators are all
Diesel.
diesel with no electronics. My 1990 truck is diesel
Smart.
with no computer. Okay.
Very smart.
All
Yep. Yeah.
right.
You don't want a car that has a brain box because once that goes out, it's done.
Yes, indeed. Jenny's gonna grow some tobacco as well, and
Nice.
for
Hmm,
bartering. That's very smart. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
so many comments here. Let me see here. What else we've got? Oh, alcohol. Alcohol is something good
Yep.
to keep for barter as well. Oh, here we go. The carnivore
Right
butchers.
there.
Oh, yep, yep. Used to drink that back in the day, but not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah. I use it
Not
for either
anymore.
bartering or tinctures. Yeah.
So I saw this video where the
Oh,
bearded butchers ate
what do
that pemmican that was 10 years old. They lived.
yep. Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I can't remember who told on one of my lives about the bearded butchers, but oh, it might have been when I was interviewing Brett.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
love their channel. Oh my gosh, it is
I've
so
never seen
good.
them. I'll
You
have to
got
go
you
look
gotta
them up.
check 'em out. They're cutting up the beef and bison,
Mhm.
and it's really, really good. If you like to watch butchering shows.
I love to because I butcher my own stuff, so that's okay with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really, really interesting. So Arlene wants to know, didn't you just do a video on making pemmican?
I don't think I did a video on it, but I don't remember because I've done so many and I've been
Yeah,
working
you've
like
been doing a
60
lot of
hours a
videos
week.
lately. I've been watching
And I
your videos,
yeah,
and they have been awesome.
yeah. And making my products, trying to make sure I can keep up. And then today, I'm so excited. I have 11 or 12 candles, and they're good size candles like that I have made. They're like that big around, and
Nice,
so I'm making those with tallow and beeswax. So I'm trying to get enough of those made to have out on my website. So if people want them,
nice,
because that helps clean the air. It's not like the other type of wax that is used in a lot of candles. So it's very good for purifying the air. And I have, allergies and asthma, so I like to do that. But I don't think I did one on pemmican. I should. The reason I don't do a lot of videos on that kind of stuff or the full thing of jerky is I do not have time to edit long videos. to cut
Mm-hmm.
down some of that in between time. I just don't. When I do a live video, it's a live video. I say 50 times and they just have to
Right. And it's okay.
watch it. Yeah, it's just the way it is. I'm not going to be polished. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm just somebody that does a lot of crazy different things and wants other people to have that knowledge. So, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I feel the same way, Laura. The video editing is nightmarishly it just takes so
Yeah.
long. It takes
I don't
so
have the
long.
patience.
And so I do it, but I love the lives because it's like, you just put it out there and there it is. But
Yeah.
yeah. And then I have all these clips that I'm putting together. I talked about this over here and then I talked about that over there and I'm putting it all together and trying to make it match. It's just crazy. So you guys who are YouTubers understand the plight of the of the
Yeah.
person who has to do editing. I noticed that Carrie at Homestead How is like, I'm not editing. Carnivores don't have to have editing. And I'm like, maybe I should just do
That's
that.
good. Yeah. I don't have the extra, like, I don't require a lot of sleep. I'm somebody that does not really require, I never really did require a
Mm,
lot of sleep. So I do a lot of this stuff when people are sleeping, but I don't want to sit there and edit anything. I do have paper pencils. I do. So I actually bought the old style sharpeners. I bought quite a few of those. I have numerous notebooks. I have different cards and card games, board games. I
hmm
have
Games
like
is
your
a good one.
clothesline. Yeah, I have clothesline and clothesline pins. I have bobby pins. I have matches. I have like the little, I don't know what that clicker is to start a fire, like to start the spark, but I have those.
Mhm.
Flint, I think it's like a flint thing that you can click. Um, yeah, I have a lot of that stuff. I have stuff that I probably don't like. I have to go back through it and look at it, how much of it, but it's just stuff that you think back and not really my lifetime because we've pretty much had washer and dryer, but like my grandmother's. Oh, yeah. That's a smart idea too. Yeah. I
Yes.
have multiple jars of purified water that are like
Mm,
the old pickle jars. um Pickle jars, like the cabbage, like sauerkraut jars, trying to think other jars that we've kept. But when I get that, I'm like, I'm not throwing that away. I can use that,
right.
and so I clean that out really well, purify some water, put it in there, put the lid on it. And then I keep that on like more of like the bottom shelving area in here where it's darker. I keep that stuff in there and I try to keep the light off of all the stuff that I have. Like I have salsa and tomatoes and things like that because my husband eats that stuff,
Yep.
green beans, things like that. But try to keep the light off.
Okay. Discarded water bottles as pots.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's true. You can cut them. And actually, now that you say that, one of the things that you can do, which helps with like when you're first growing seeds, is you can take, like he's saying, you can take a pop or a water bottle that's the clear ones, is what I would use, and cut it, and then put that top over that. And it's kind of like a terrarium, and it'll
Mm-hmm.
keep that moisture in there. And it really helps when they're first starting to germinate. So that is something you could use.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let's see what else we've got here.
smart.
So
There's some good
Elaine
ideas.
says, my garden last summer was just not growing chemtrails.
Chemtrails. Hmm.
The preparation is internal, letting go of thoughts and passion triggering so that intelligence. I have no idea what this means.
Yes. So so what she's talking about is when we were kids and a plane would fly in the sky, you would see, like the vapor left over from their airplane, and
Mhm.
then it just like dissipates. It's not there for like 17 hours. Well,
Right.
now and then like it never blocked out the sun. And so like last summer I noticed several days where it was like it was just that. It was just chemtrails, tons of them, and you couldn't hardly see the sun. Well, that is going to take a toll on the stuff you're growing. Um
Okay.
and Yeah, and I don't have a greenhouse. I mean, I suppose it would help if somebody had like a greenhouse set up, even a small one. They make these really small greenhouses that you could put on your back porch if you had to, or just outside your house if
Mm-hmm.
you needed to. Um, yeah, and it's unfortunate. There's some stuff we just are not going to be able to do. But I always recommend, like everybody, that anytime I talk about chemtrails, they're like, okay. And I'm like, look up the word HARP, HARP,
Okay.
and get ready to go down a rabbit trail. So,
Okay.
yes. And so it is something that truly is there. It is happening and it has been around for a long time and it is controlling weather. And it can be done. The military was able to do it several, like 40 years ago.
Wow.
So anybody that thinks that they let go of that technology and that if it gets in the wrong hands aren't going to use it, I mean, okay, good
Yeah.
luck. I've got oceanfront property right here in Illinois if you want to buy it. So good luck. It's there.
Okay, that's my first
And
time hearing about chemtrails, so thank you for that information.
yeah,
If I use a glass water bottle, does it matter if my spring water comes in a plastic bottle?
I would say it's not great to get any of the water that's in the plastic bottles, but if you're going to get that, I would pour it into a glass jar and leave it on your counter overnight to let any of those kind of contaminants come out and then transfer it into glass.
Mm.
And I do have some
I use
stainless
this.
steel.
It's like a stainless
Yeah, and
steel
I
on the
do.
inside.
Yeah, and I do have stainless steel, but I do have a lot of glass, because, I mean, glass can be a weapon too if you need to have it.
That's true. I
I
do
mean, we've
still
all
use
seen the
plastic
movies.
bottles a lot, but I'm hearing more
Mhm.
and more about this microplastic problem, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh boy, I'm gonna go
Mhm.
off another deep end. Sorry, guy. Sorry,
Yeah,
husband.
and well, and the microplastics are so hard because they're estrogen, they really mimic estrogen,
Hmm.
which is probably like, I'm sure in your lifetime, you've seen men go from manly men to, you know, what we
Yeah.
have some
Yep.
today.
Yep.
And
We have
yeah,
seen
and and the testosterone levels,
testosterone. Yep.
like the normal is so low now. And they're like, oh, that's normal. That's our normal range now. And I'm like, just because everybody has dropped doesn't make it normal. It's just what's happening.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Well, I think
True.
it's a lot. There's a lot of chemicals that we're ingesting or that are in our air and in our
Hmm.
products, and
Sure.
they're just all around us that are affecting our hormones, and it's
Hmm.
just a fact of the matter that
It is.
that these chemicals are very, very dangerous, and we are hearing more and more about it. So when you think about, rabbit trails and what they would call conspiracies and things like that, it's a conspiracy that the food pyramid is upside down and backwards, right? But
It
we all
is.
know that
Yeah,
that's truth.
sure. And we know
So,
that, well, and we know it wasn't done accidentally. I
yeah,
mean, that was
right.
done
It's a
purposefully.
conspiracy.
So,
It's a real
hmm,
conspiracy that
yeah, yeah,
actually has happened. And I'm sure there are many, many more other conspiracies that have been,
sure. And she's
that are
right.
out there.
Cabbage leaves are very good for compresses. Yes, absolutely. The other thing is comfrey. Comfrey is another thing that I am planting this year, along with elderberry. I have some elderberry cuttings that I'm going to do, but comfrey is very good to use for wounds. It's good to use even over broken bones. I'm not going to tell you it's going to heal that broken bone, but I do think it helps with the inflammation in that area and allows the healing. I mean, if you have a displaced bone, that's something that has to be dealt with. But if you have a nice clean break, and you can't get to a hospital, it's a nice thing to have a wrap that you can put that in. But yes, cabbage leaves are very good for the inflammation for sure.
Okay. So the person who put out the video about pemmican is Nia at Nia's Way.
Okay,
So that's
Nia's
awesome.
way.
Gonna have to go check that out.
Yeah, yeah.
So Jasmine's loving
Aw,
Laura's products. So am I.
thank you.
I have my
Good.
products here. I haven't tried
Yeah.
this yet. And then I have my tallow lotion. And I also have lip balm and it's right here.
Yep.
I think that's it. I think that's all the things I got. But I'll be ordering
Did
candles,
you
I
do
guess,
tooth
pretty
powder?
soon. Oh, tooth
Yeah.
powder. It's up in the bathroom.
Yeah. And it
I
is good
love
for
it.
sensitive teeth.
Man,
It will
I
help with
love
people
the
that
tooth
have
powder, you
sensitive teeth.
guys. I've been using Sensodyne for a couple years now, and my teeth are still
Hmm.
sensitive. And
Yeah.
so it's like that tooth powder is really, really nice. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's see what else we got here. I'm just trying to see if we have any other questions. What's the difference between purified water and distilled water? Do we know?
Mm. Distilled processing is a warming process. I think they do some of the same things. Purified water is where you're going to run it through like charcoal filters, sand filters that are going to get out the bigger particles. Um, so I'm not. I mean, my son likes to drink distilled water, and I do the stuff that I run through a filter, and we're both okay. So I'm not sure. Oh yeah,
Okay,
egg cartons. That's a good idea to start
that's a good idea. To
your
start,
seeds
yeah.
in.
Yep.
Yep,
That's a very, very
that's
good
a good
idea.
idea. My
There's
husband reuses his. Yeah.
another question here. Do you have to store your lard and tallow in the refrigerator?
I'm sitting in my room right now, and here's a jar of tallow. Let's see. Here's a jar of
Does
tallow.
it have to be in an airtight container, Laura?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I just did a bunch of tallow yesterday. I had some beef suet that I got
Yeah.
from my local farmer.
Yeah.
And I did, rendered out the tallow, and it's in like a plastic container with a top, but it's not an airtight. So I should take
Yeah.
it out of there. I'm planning to take it out of there anyway because I didn't have a chance to clean it properly. You know what I mean? To
Right.
get all
Right.
the
Right.
chunks out
Sure.
of it. So I'm
Yeah.
going to take it out of there. I'm going to reheat it and do what Rhonda did, which was, heat it slowly,
Sure.
let all the
Yep.
whatever
Let the impurities come out in the
impurities come
water
out.
and everything else.
And
Yep.
then I will, I guess, need to put it in glass airtight
Yes.
container.
And what I do is I prefer to try to have like the canning lids and rings and have quart or pint jars. And I have that jar in hot water while I'm doing the processing of the tallow. And this
Mm-hmm.
is for tallow that I want to store. So this is for
Okay.
tallow I want to put up.
Yeah.
If I'm going to save some, then yes, that I'm going to use for cooking, then I would put that in the fridge and it doesn't have to be sealed necessarily, but I wouldn't keep it in plastic. Um, but
Okay.
I don't use it for cooking because I have so much ribeye fat that that's always thrown in with whatever I'm cooking. So I'm making tallow all the time. So I
Yeah.
will can it. And when I say can it, I don't do a canning process where I put it through a canner, but as it is hot, I let it cool a little and then I pour it in and I put the lid and ring in. I turn that upside down on the counter for about 5 minutes, turn it back over, and it seals. And
Okay.
I
Yes.
have them, and there's several. I have it's over a decade. So
Okay. So
yeah,
totally screwed up with that whole plastic container thing. It was the biggest thing I had to put it in there.
that's
But
okay.
I'm
It's
gonna
not
have to
ruined. It's just yeah, and just be careful when you take it out. Geoengineering. What? Yes, yes.
Dane
Oh,
Wigington. Okay. I'm gonna try to make sure that I put all the links that
sure.
to everything that we've talked about. It may take me a minute to get them all in there, but I will make sure that we get them in. So Dane Wigington,
And
geoengineering wise.
anybody who is a coffee drinker and a prepper, I would always recommend that you have a hand mill that you can do
Mhm.
your own grinding, or I have a pestle and mortar and stuff. But
Yeah.
is also to have an old fashioned style coffee percolator with the filters and stuff.
Nia's here, the lady who made
Oh,
the pemmican.
hi.
Hey, Nia. Thanks for
Yay.
stopping by.
We're gonna come watch that. I want to see if it's similar to how I make mine. So yeah. And I don't do the fruit and the nuts and stuff in mine just because I don't want those in there. But yeah, I think that's
Right.
cool.
What
Yeah,
is
the
a
Berkey.
Berkey?
Yeah.
Never even heard
Berkey
of
is
it.
a water filter. They're
Oh.
humongous. I mean, they come in different sizes. I that and people can get them. I did not get them. I thought about it. I really did. And then I thought, I have a way to collect rainwater. I have a
Mhm.
55-gallon barrel. I have that. We actually have an old cistern that we can have up and running if we want to. And I have so many of my own little filters that filter out like the crap they put on your teeth. They don't put on my teeth no more. They
Fluoride.
haven't. Yes. Yeah, the fluoride and all the chemicals, I have those. So I do
Dr.
it
Barry
that
just
way,
put a
but
video out about that. I haven't watched it yet.
I quit doing fluoride when my daughter was like 3 or 4 because every time the dentist would put fluoride on my teeth hurt. And I just said, I'm not
Hmm.
doing that. So I quit doing that a long time ago. And then when I found out the type of fluoride that they were using, what it was made from, and they know it because when I went to a newer dentist, I mean, he was an old dentist, but he was new to me. And I was like, yeah, I make my own tooth powder and I do this. And he was like, what's in it? And I told him, he goes, oh. And I said, because bone is living, teeth are living bone, just like your bones, as long as you haven't had a root canal done to those. So I said, so if I can regrow this bone, I can regrow that bone. And he was like, "Oh, absolutely." And I'm like, "Well, I don't think we're taught that. I don't think that
No,
isn't
no,
something."
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't.
yeah.
That's
And we
interesting.
have to keep a bad tooth forever. Like we'll root canal it and we'll do I don't know what that's called, a crown or no,
Crown.
it's a dead tooth. It's going to harbor bacteria. Get it out. And unfortunately,
Okay.
hopefully it's not a front tooth, but
Yeah.
they're not a good thing to have. But I just told him, he brought in this thing of fluoride. And I said, oh no, no, I that's not going in my mouth. You want it, you can have it. And I said, how many nanograms are safe? And he was like, and I said, zero point 0.2. I said, how much is
Wow.
in that? And he's like, about 20. And I said, no, thank you. And I said, and I know where that fluoride comes from. So no, thanks. It's not from the groundwater. And he goes, well, no. And
Interesting.
I said, okay. And he didn't argue. I mean, he literally was like, okay.
Okay. Wow.
Well, I'm a
Bible
truther.
reading bear is here.
Exactly.
I'm a
Yes.
truther. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Something called the dimming. Watch the dimming
Yes.
about weather modification
Yep.
on YouTube. On
Yep.
YouTube. Okay.
Yeah. It,
And
it'll, it will scare you, but it's information you need to know. Yep,
yep.
poppies, yep, because they're an opioid. They make
Right.
opium. Yep.
Jay's here. Hey, Jay. Oh, the
Hi,
link for
Jay.
Laura's store. That was what I was going to ask you.
Oh,
Can you type
yeah,
it in
I
the
can put it.
chat and
Yep.
then
And
I'll grab it.
there's two ways to get to it. One of our viewers from our Meaty Mondays did a .com for me and attached it. And
Nice.
then the other, I was like, I don't know how to do that. She was like, I did that for you. I was like, you're so nice. I don't know how to do it.
Very
Which is
nice.
good.
Very nice.
Yes. Let's see. Square dot site is the other way to get to that.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
all of the stuff, yes, and all the stuff that I make, I absolutely put on my body every single day. The chapstick I have made this last time is a little bit of a harder chapstick just because summer's coming and I know that trying to get it sent out and get it to people, but it's good stuff and
Love it.
it
It
stays
I
on.
I use chapstick all the time. I have this Avon chapstick that I use.
Mhm.
We usually when I'm going on my lives, I'll be putting that on. But this lasts all day. Like you put
Yeah,
it on, you don't need to put it on again today.
yeah,
Lasts
it's
all
good
day
stuff.
long.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So let's see what else that people have to say here. I want you to tell us, we're like 1 hour and 44 minutes. So the last
We're
thing
fine.
that I would love it if you would tell us, and I'm just gonna keep popping up comments here. unless we get a question.
All right.
For somebody who's brand new to prepping, a baby prepper, just getting started, what is the very basic thing that a person can do to get started that won't cost them 2 arms and 2 legs,
Yeah.
and will be the most helpful?
I would say having clean water, and that, like I said, that can be buying water, that can be purifying it yourself, setting it out on the counter, letting some of that stuff go, work its way out naturally, and then putting it into glass jars, tucking it into closets. I mean, places that you don't even think about. Any canned meats, and even if you're not going to can it yourself, you can, buy tuna, salmon. You always want it in oil, or, of its own oil. You'd want to make sure, or water, and just squeeze the water out, because it's bad stuff. The oil that they use is junk. And I would always say you want a good salt. You either want like the Redmonds Real Salt or the Celtic salt, and you want to buy that in bulk, because as humans, we can live without food for a long, long, long time, but you
Mhm.
have to have water, and you've got to have the electrolytes. And so you will have to have those things. So those are the things that I would say anybody can do. You can do that for $10. If you have an extra 10 here, an extra 10 there, then that's what I would do. And then as you watch prepping videos, and as you watch people, there might be other things that you think of that you can start putting away. I bought some of those clear totes with the lids, to put some of those wound supplies, things like that. Like I can do stitches and staples and stuff like that. I've got the stop clot stuff, things like that. I have extra stuff, but you just want to think about, I guess, like when I went to my grandma's, what did she have? She had band-aids of every size. She had terry cloth towels that she would cut up and save. And I thought, what the hell you need that for? And not to be gross, but if you don't have toilet paper at some point, you're gonna have to have something, and that's a nice thing to have, unless you want to use a leaf. And I don't trust myself, because I'd probably give myself poison ivy. So
Right.
we're not going to go
Me
there.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
Wait,
So
what?
in the yeah, yeah. So in the canned, so in like your tuna, if you look at the tuna, some of it is, I have found a few that's in like an olive oil, and I guess you can trust that maybe, but I prefer to get the water and just squeeze the water out if I'm going to use the tuna. Most of it is not packed in its own oil, which really, duh, kind of should be. They
Yeah.
actually process that out and then throw the other junk in, which just drives me insane. But
Yeah.
yeah, you just want to be careful of the oils, because these oils, Charger Mopar could use these seed oils in his generator. He could pour them in there, and we're using, those are going on your grill when you go out to eat, and they're making your steak and your burger. They're doing that. Never used to it. All right. There you go.
Yep.
That's smart. Yep. And you don't use a lot of toilet paper either when you are a
Carnivore.
carnivore. It's not. Yep, yeah.
A lot
So
less.
if there is ever,
Sure.
I should not, I can be like calm, because oh, Michonne.
Several.
Oh, I love meat. Hey, I don't have that. I do have things similar to that. And then yes, I'm good for a
As
while.
Laura said, make sure that you are prepared, be able to protect yourself and your stuff. I took a note of that.
Yes.
So,
Yes, I do believe in, and it's nothing against the police, but if something goes amok over here, there's not enough of
yeah,
them,
that's
to
right.
get to everybody. And I I mean, it's not like if the phones are working, yeah, I'm going to call 911, but I'm going to be like, just bring the medical examiner with you, and we'll be good. Yeah.
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 Sadly, you might
Yes.
have to do that. So
Yes.
hopefully we won't have a zombie apocalypse, but
I hope not.
I wanted to just I really wanted to get some basic information about prepping for myself because I've been watching Bill and of course Laura.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And in Bill's videos, every single video, he says, repent, 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 prepare, prepare,
There.
prepare. And I'm like, okay, so I
Absolutely.
need to find out at least what I need to do to be basically prepared in case something
Yeah.
goes down. So Laura just told us you need to make sure you've got clean water, canned meats, and salt at a minimum. And, you know, if I think about what happened when the pandemic occurred and everybody
Mhm.
lost their whole minds, I had my best friend, who's my husband's aunt. She's the person who is like the prepper in the family that has all of the things. She has a stockpile. So everybody was
Yeah.
going to her saying, "Do you have some toilet paper?" You know, so because you couldn't get it in the stores, and a lot
Yeah.
of things that you couldn't get, in the stores during that time, and things still have not even really returned to the way they were before the pandemic
No,
happened. So if the pandemic can happen one time,
it can happen
something can
again.
happen again, and with,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it, don't be mad at me, with wars and rumors of wars going around
Mhm. Yeah.
all over this world, we never
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. Yeah, yeah. Oaktown Girl is mentioning Hurricane Katrina, the
Yes.
hurricanes. The weather is absolutely insane. Um, so she
Yeah.
says, ever since Hurricane Katrina, I've noticed the first thing the authorities do is prevent people from helping each other.
And I
So,
do think that happens sometimes. Um, because I took care of several couples that moved up here to Illinois. They were Mormon, that went through Hurricane Katrina, and they all said the same thing, that some of the local authorities were like, when they were trying to go door to door. And I try not to think that they were doing it for the wrong reason. I feel like they don't want people who are not trained to be doing some of those things, because then
mhm,
that's just two more victims that they have to go try to save from the water or something. That's how I make
right,
myself believe that. I hope that's why
I hope
that is, and
so.
not for any other bad reasons. But
Right.
because they don't know. Even when we had, a bad hurricane, or not hurricane, but a bad tornado, and a lot of us just kind of showed up on site to help. I mean, I have that disaster training, and I'm on a list of, like, if this stuff happens, like, this is somebody we need to get a hold of. I'm on that list. But I didn't have any paperwork with me, and they were like, well, you need to step aside. And I was like, I'm here. This is my thing. And they were like, oh, and but at first they were like, nah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's
Right.
see. Yep,
Yep.
absolutely.
So
Kitty
these are
litter too.
some really great ideas and thoughts about how to be prepared. I'm never going to be as prepared as you, Laura, because wow,
Well, I've been
I
doing it
wrote
for a
down all
long,
the
long
things.
time. I
Wow.
know. And
Yeah.
I had I did a little bit of a prep video on some stuff. And, I had a couple people that were like, well, we're never going to catch up with. And I said, well, I'm not expecting you. And I'm not doing this for you to be like, look at what I have and you don't. I want everybody to be able to start doing something. Because every week, if you've got $5 to go to Starbucks, or 8, or whatever it costs, I don't even know. But anyway,
Right.
if you've got that, look how many cans of tuna you could buy. Look
Yep.
at, you can buy extra things of butter, and can some butter. You can buy
Mhm.
a 6 pack of some of these types of jars and lids and rings for canning, that you don't have to just do those bottles for canning.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I know. You're right. Yes, they did. I know. I saw that. It
Yeah.
is diabolical. That's why I
Yes.
try not to watch the stuff happening. I mean, I pay attention to the WHO and the WEF, and Davos and stuff like that. But I try to not watch too much of that, because I feel like I'm as prepared as I can be. And if
Yeah.
I watch too much of it, it gets me super depressed, and then I don't want to be jaded. Because
Right.
I do still think there's a lot of really great people here. And I think that those people will shine when that time is needed. I think we'll be surprised, and we'll have to educate people. So yeah, paint your roof blue. I've heard that. And actually it's that color of blue right there that she's got for our bubbles. So yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I have heard
Right.
that. That's
Yeah.
scary too.
What, I don't know about the blue roof. Somebody help us understand.
So in Maui, if you looked at the first videos that some of the people were able to get from satellite pictures, you would have like those umbrellas that have red, yellow, blue, sometimes green, and
Mm-hmm.
everything would be incinerated except for the sheets of blue on there. So it's I forget, they're called direct energy weapons that it can be used, which is something that has been around for a long time, and it will just set fire to stuff. And so the only homes in Maui that did not burn, if you've seen some of the first videos, you'd see complete disaster. I mean, just burned to the ground, cars melted, just
Wow.
nothing. And then you'd see a car that was that shade of blue and it
Mm.
had nothing around it. And you'd see a
Wow.
house that would have a blue roof and it was completely shaded, like nothing, it didn't get fire, but fire was on this side, in front, in back, and the next house. So it just,
Wow.
when you see that kind of stuff, you can't unsee it. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And it has something to do with the frequency of that blue, is what the
Okay.
way I read that. So yeah.
Interesting. Wow. I
Yeah.
did not
So it
know about
is like,
that.
yeah, it's another rabbit hole to go down.
So don't be surprised if this video gets taken down. There's a lot of truth being said and they will ban it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
maybe
far,
what
they
I'll
haven't
do
on
is
mine.
save a copy. I have it on my
Yeah.
StreamYard, so we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But
Yeah.
I
And I've
appreciate
talked
Laura.
about this. Yeah. And I've talked about a lot of this on my videos before. I've never had one taken down so far. I haven't had them, send me anything
Yeah,
saying like I'm going against their standards. And if that happens, that's fine. I have Twitter, I'm on Rumble, I'm on all of the other items that they don't have super control of at this point. So
right.
hopefully I don't have to go to that, but if I
Yeah,
do
hopefully
for
not.
these,
No.
yeah,
We'll see.
then I will.
I'll watch
Yeah,
out for it to get to get some kind of flag or something about it because this is
yeah,
so important. Like,
yeah.
we're trying to live our best lives, right? By doing the
And
best we can for our
self-preservation.
bodies and making sure that we're eating the right kind of foods and things like that. And so
Mhm.
to me, this was a valuable topic
Yeah,
because so much of what we talked about today I didn't know about. So even, like I said, I took my tallow and put it in a plastic container yesterday. So that probably wasn't the best thing. So, just I
okay.
appreciate it so much, Laura. This has been really, really awesome. I hope they don't take it down.
Yeah,
Because the information out here is valuable. But there's a lot of
it
preppers
is.
out there that are doing channels. We know that Bill's got his channel; he talks about it all the time. And we did hear about another one on here, the last day of normal, that they're doing their preppers, and so we just want to make sure that
Yeah,
people get the message, get the memo. So,
yeah.
Oaktown Girl, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. This has been absolutely fantastic, as I knew it would be. When Laura came and interviewed with me a couple of months ago, I was like, we've got to do a prepping show because definitely people need to have a basic understanding about what can we do. I'm going to pop up your .com site here because somebody's asking about your store. Definitely you guys want to go out and support Laura's store, but you're supporting yourself when you support
I love
Laura
it.
because her stuff is awesome. Awesome. So definitely,
And
go check
cheap.
out her store. And cheap. Yeah. It was very cheap. So, definitely get the tooth powder. It's pretty awesome. So,
Good for you.
um, people are saying thank you. You are so welcome. We will
Yes,
be back
yes.
again with another episode of Carnivorous Grandma Speaks. All right, you guys, have a good night. See you next time.
See ya.